explaining like the duality of like a sliding scale between like efficiency and what is considered quote unquote good.
Yeah, but are you gonna tell like your best friend who's just starting PoE for the first time to be like, yo, you can play any build, just sink infinite amounts of time. And
exactly. Like that's
learn
weird
how to play the
argument.
build and like and then like build the build and get the right.
Like, okay,
no
one disagrees with
you. Do that.
Let's say that you have like a girlfriend who's like never touched games before ever, right? And you're trying to like get her into like PoE, and then she like comes in and she's like clicking around, and you know she's like
she'll quit in 2 minutes.
She's in. Just hear me out. You know, she's like, you know, on the beach where you spawn for like 3 hours, right? And she hasn't even made it to Hillock yet, okay?
Sure.
And then hypothetically, let's say that like, you know, she's made like 12 characters to try to get the Hillock, right? And she's like, no, I don't like this one, and so she goes to make something else, right? And let's also assume, for the sake of this argument, that every time you make a character, you start with a different like basic skill, right? So like not every witch starts.
Which you arguably do, but yeah.
Right. So my point here is that like she might really like the way that, you know, Frost Blast looks, or whatever X spell is, right?
Sure.
An X spell might be fucking terrible, and it might require like, you know, like 2 mirrors of investments before you can even like map with it before it's efficient, right? But if that's what she likes and that's the only thing she wants to play, and it's that, or she, you know, she's not interested in the game, like, are you gonna tell her no? Like, here's a list of like league starters that you can choose from.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, okay, no, but that's not.
She's not gonna have a great time trying to play this thing.
Well, okay, but you could, in my opinion, that's not much different than an Iron player enjoying playing League, even though they're Iron. If they are happy being borderline ignorant to what they can or should achieve, then they can have fun with anything.
I mean, that's fair.
You know,
I'm not gonna tell her what is or isn't fun for them. But I will tell them that they're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which is exactly why there is no better, in that each of the games just have a distinct audience that they target. There will be some people when they log into PoE and they see this massive skill tree. Probably the majority of them are going to be like, yo, fuck this shit, Alt F4. But there's going to be some of them that look at that and they're going to be like, you know, their eyes light up and they're like, oh my god, I can do so much stuff. And it's going to be the best game for them. Same thing with like Last Epoch. Some people that, like, you know, they log in, they just love the gameplay or the weapon or whatever it is, and they're going to play that game because of that specific appeal. There really is no better. It's just they excel at different things.
Yeah. Which is why I just brought up that, like, for me, the sentiment of someone who played PoE for like 15 years is I've had more moments as of recent history, maybe that skews my vision of it, but I had more moments in Last Epoch where like I picked up a legendary item and I was like, oh my god, this enables like a cool build.
Yeah, I completely agree on that.
Whereas like I look at PoE and then maybe I'm jaded, but I look at PoE, I drop a 1C unique and I'm like, yeah, this is dog shit. There's no, even if I wanted to make a build that uses this unique, it's gonna be dog. Nothing can make this unique usable.
I completely agree on that.
Yeah, I think one
I
of the
would
most
say you are
things about
partially jaded, but again, I would go back to just Last
because
Epoch is intrinsically not difficult.
It's also because I'm experienced enough to understand that this fucking item is trash and no one ever wants to use it.
That's exactly it. You know enough of the game. When you don't know, it's suddenly there's so many more possibilities.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting back to before, where how basically, obviously because you play PoE a bunch, it's you know what the good classes are, or the good builds are, but PoE's tools to even as a new player, if you so chose to figure out what the meta builds are, they're just so laid out for you visually to gain that knowledge that you already know off a rip that what you're playing is probably bad. Last Epoch didn't really have those community resources available yet, I guess, to like have that in your face, essentially.
You just look at the leaderboards in game. PoE doesn't even have that. PoE, you have to go to PoE Ninja and you have to point people to POBs. you're immediately pointing a new player to third-party programs and websites.
Like 4 different ones.
Yeah, like compared to Last Epoch, where it's just like, yeah, man, just press a button, you look
at the leaderboards, and it just kind of works.
Yeah, and then there's like 50% of them are more Falconeers and shit.
Sure, but like, we're making the argument of what's more visually easier to access. Like, a new player can figure out what's good in Last Epoch pretty easily on their own, whereas like, I'm pointing a new player to PoE and fucking...
But then you're saying picking up a random unique as a new player and Last Epoch gives you ideas,
exciting.
but
Yeah, it's still exciting because it still seems like you can play these.
then it's just basically just because you're jaded and have more info on you. That's simply the only reason then.
Yeah.
And nothing,
Well,
no other reason.
The unique items, no, the unique items straight up are actually in some cases a lot more.
Yes, but you are talking about from the opinion of a new
PoE,
player.
there's like 15
that's the argument you're
uniques
trying
in
to
the entire game.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, but
that's
to you because you know PoE.
Maybe not
you're definitely jaded.
There's 1,000 uniques in PoE, maybe 100 of them are fucking good. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real here. Like, let's not kid ourselves. There's like maybe 100 good uniques.
The fact that there are 1,000 means shit like war loot shows up. And that's really one of the special things about PoE. And honestly, one of the special thing about Last Epoch is that like you actually can kind of do whatever you want and figure it out as you go and still feel
it kind of
powerful.
works.
Yeah, I mean, because the game isn't just intrinsically easy. As
Yeah, exactly.
it could
Oh, yeah.
it could change. I mean, it could definitely change.
Yeah, it
in
can
the
definitely
future,
change.
but-
Yeah, but PoE never started where Last Epoch started either. I played PoE when it was fucking in its infancy, and it was still a fucking hard game and super hardcore and super complicated, even in its infancy, without 50 leagues of content, without 50 leagues of bloat and uniques and other bullshit that maybe shouldn't be in the game anymore. I don't know, like...
That's.
I mean,
that's-
yeah, but it's just a matter of like what content gets added to like what's moving the bar, I suppose.
Realistically, PoE is one thing. It's an amazing game that's catered to the 1%.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
That's about it. Like, I'm not gonna say it's a bad game. I've never once said PoE is a bad game, bro. Like, I love
PoE is
PoE.
definitely one of the best
I
games.
spent not
I spent copious amounts of dollars on the game supporter pack. Okay, I'm gonna get into the closed beta of PoE 2. Let's just put it at that, easily. No questions asked. I've spent more than enough money. But
Here's a question. So you said that PoE caters to the 1%, right?
yes, it definitely.
What
does.
would you say that Diablo caters to? Like if you had to like give it a percentage of the population. Like, the
Fucking
most-
couch
who's-
gamers, bro.
the
The
person
90,
who-
95%.
The person who says I play video games on their Tinder profile, and then when you hang out with them, they say, yeah, I play Candy Crush.
Alright, hypothetically, just for the sake of my question, give me a percentage.
I'd say 90.
90?
Yeah, like
What?
so, like you know, you
Wait,
said
percentage of what?
of the population does it appeal to? Because you're saying like PoE
gamers.
is
Yeah,
1%,
Diablo.
right?
Diablo 4 clearly tries to appeal to like as many people as possible. I don't know what the number
Right.
is. Pull up
Just
the
no.
random.
In your estimation, give me a percent. I have a reason for
100%.
asking.
If
Okay,
Diablo
100.
could have it their way,
So-
they wanted to appeal to 100% of the people.
Okay,
Why
now
would
what
they hire
about-
Megan Fox?
What about Last Epoch?
The Last Epoch wants to appeal to the ARPG crowd. I don't know what percentage. It's another arbitrary.
In your
I think
estimate.
Last Epoch realistically is trying to target.
50%.
I don't know, maybe.
I'd say 7.
I would say they want to target specifically ARPG enjoyers that maybe don't want to put in all the effort like they should in PoE, and maybe they don't, and maybe they're yearning for something more than something like D4. That's why I said it's somewhere healthily in the middle. Let's not put a number to it, but it's somewhere between PoE and D4. It doesn't have to be right exactly in the middle, but it's between the two.
Sure, like but all the numbers we suggested were between the two, right? Because we put PoE at 1 and.
But it's not 2.5. That's
Yeah, that's definitely.
I think
2.5
that
for
I mean,
one feels
I
like
think
it's
the
I would
amount
say
of
as of
stuff
right
that you
now,
can
it's
do-
pretty fucking low.
Yeah,
Again, I think when they start adding actual Pinnacle content and difficult, meaningly difficult things to do in the game, that will go up. But as of right now, I mean, it's pretty low.
Well, to the argument you made earlier, I feel like if you make the game harder, then you make less viability, right? Like,
Well, the
that's
thing is,
exactly
it's not about making the game harder for everyone. It's just adding, again, it's just adding Pinnacle content. Like, I mean, obviously, you always get to choose how hard said Pinnacle content is. I mean, maybe they do make Pinnacle content and it's just relatively easy. I don't know. I mean, but I don't feel like Pinnacle content being easy is what should exist, personally.
Oh no, it shouldn't be easy at all.
no, I mean, it shouldn't be easier, or else it wouldn't be called that.
Yeah.
Then exactly. So it's like, as soon
But it
as
should
these
be- but I
difficult
think it should
pieces
be
of content are
realistically
out,
achievable, though.
the bar of a good build, it gets harder and harder to have a good build, essentially. When the goal is to do said Pinnacle content,
Okay, let's say, okay, if what?
which is to say
how-
PoE isn't.
okay, let's say, how much of a percentage of the player base would you think Pinnacle content should be completed by? So, like, do you think 20% of the player base should be able to complete Pinnacle content given a reasonable amount of time? 5%, 1%? Like, because I think right now, realistically, the people completing PoE's Pinnacle content is definitely less than 10%. Maybe even less than 5%.
Yes, and I definitely would point that towards just the intrinsic difficulty of PoE off rip, which obviously last Epoch doesn't necessarily have that problem, which is just build making. But
yeah. But my question is, like, so what do you think is a healthy, like, number to target if you're a game developer?
I'll say no more
trying
than
to make
15%
content,
personally.
right?
I would like to say 15 to 20. That number kind of changes depending on the game. It's like Final Fantasy 14 ultimate raids are actually barely touched by the players. But to be fair, Final Fantasy 14 has more of like a RPG like vibe to it that you can participate in and just have fun that way. And obviously, I guess you could say for ARPGs, that equivalent would be just being happy, just only ever doing yellow maps type shit. Whatever the equivalent of last Epoch. I mean, I guess kind of just whatever last Epoch is right now is basically the same shit. But and then D4, obviously, they're just the lost cause seemingly at this point, but or it's just gonna take another year for them. But
yeah, I don't know. I just think that the effort that PoE expects the average player to put forth is a little high for most people. Like, I played last Epoch's
I
first
don't think anyone
cycle.
disagrees.
I made like 6 characters and got them to quote-unquote red map equivalents, right? And then meanwhile, I do 1 character, I get to red maps, and I'm like, honestly, this build's alright. I want to play another build, but it's going to take me like a millennia to farm the gear for this build to even be moderately functional. Let alone as good as my starter build that had no investment.
If you are also coming at the I guess the viewpoint of SSF, obviously last Epoch is much better SSF player than
that too, but yeah. And yeah, and like I can specifically playing last Epoch SSF and feel like I'm not like wanting to shoot myself on every single given moment, whereas at least with PoE, like SSF is actually just self-destruct. You are a massive hit if you play hardcore SSF.
Okay, so here, why is last Epoch SSF so much better than PoE?
Because you
the
get
guild,
cool
the
buffs.
factions,
Yeah, you get
they
cool
just give you
buffs.
buffs.
Do you think that alone is enough?
I think that one is.
So if PoE added that, literally just that, they copy pasted it, do you think SSF PoE would be?
It would be way better. Yes. I think like
It would
adding
be
more
easier to
determinism,
accomplish things.
hard stuff. Yes. For sure.
Because my issue with
Obviously
PoE is the
I still
bloat.
don't think a new player should necessarily play SSF, maybe in either game. Well, assuming you have goals, far-reaching goals, but you know.
Yeah, look at Jimmy linked me this like flowchart thing on the PoE Reddit like a while back, bro. Tell me this isn't accurate though, like of like the average casual PoE player experience. And I'm sure some of us even go through this too, and we're not like, I wouldn't even call most of us casuals. I'm sure we go through this cyclical feeling of play a good build. Oh yeah, I'm popping up. Let me play a jank build. Play a jank build. This fucking sucks. Let me go back to my good build. And
Yeah,
you
but
repeat
I
that
guess
over until you quit.
For me, again, it just goes back to like a build probably feels bad because you're trying to do Pinnacle content, specific content that's just designed.
No. I've played jank builds that I can't even clear white maps, and I'm like, I want to play the skill. I like the skill functionally, visually, mechanically, but I cannot play this build because I don't have items that will facilitate like and even a functional. Or when you're trying to do shit like Ward Loop, like Eddie was earlier mentioning, like hella cool build. Can you play it on a budget? No, unplayable on a budget. Right? Like, you get these people to farm up all this sick currency and shit like that to try to play like Pinnacle builds, and then you shoot them down immediately because they're like, you didn't farm enough. You don't play enough.
Okay, the thing is,
you don't understand
this at least this image off meta doesn't necessarily mean you made your own build. There's plenty of things you could copy and plenty of builds you could copy that are off meta that are actually still.
I'm coming to you.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, sure. This is you'll never make it yourself.
Yes, making builds yourself, especially if you're just not good at it, you've never done it before, whatever. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be pretty fucking difficult, even with a lot of currency. Obviously, certain items and certain amounts of currency definitely alleviate that, but
Same.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, like
you have D. That's what I'm saying. Like you have D4 where you don't make any builds. Like Blizzard literally makes the builds, and then you just wear the gear. And then you have PoE where they don't hold your hand at all, and you have to figure out the build, or you copy paste it from a content creator. And then you have Last Epoch where, like, I think realistically most of us who played Last Epoch that didn't follow a guide.
Yeah, I don't follow a single guy.
Cleared the campaign very comfortably, and like it felt pretty nice to be able to like figure out synergies on your own, or like find cool interactions, and then find a cool legendary item that like bolstered that interaction or changed it in a way that was interesting. It might not it's not a Falconeer, it's not the best build, but it still
good enough.
Felt good, and it felt like rewarding to like look at these items. The items don't immediately sell you on a particular thing, but they give you an idea, and then you turn that idea into something, and then that feels rewarding.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly, what I will say is that the fact that you guys are so passionately arguing about two of my favorite games of all time, I appreciate that so much.
PoE and Last Epoch?
They're literally like two of my absolute most favorite games.
And bro, I don't get it twisted. I fucking love PoE.
Waypoint.
I might feel jaded and sound jaded, but I fucking love PoE.
Well, again,
I've played it for 15 years, but that's my opinion of it. It's like, it is very hard for people to get into the game if you're casual.
I think, I've probably said this before, but I think for PoE 2, they definitely need to like design a very good like onboard process for players.
Oh, they are doing it for sure. There's no way they're not.
Yeah, I'm just crossing my fingers that they know what the hell went wrong with PoE 1 in terms of complexity, and they dial it down just a little bit. Not
they're absolutely doing it.
Yeah, just not to the point where it's like D4, where it's so dumb that a fish could play the game, but like somewhere between maybe Last Epoch and where PoE 1.
It could be as simple as like res not being as hard to acquire during the campaign. Honestly, like for new players, they don't even know what res does, bro, and they're probably like just no res. Maybe they managed to get to Act 5, kill the boss. Oh, now they have negative 30 res and still aren't getting more res, and they're just getting shit on. Like,
I think a lot of it will be alleviated because PoE 2 has the dodge roll mechanics. So, I think it seems like the way they're designing boss fights is designing it to be more methodical, like
100%.
Like Lost Ark. Yeah, it's not as much stat checky and more like, hey man, avoid the red zone or you're gonna get hit for 90%. Which I think is much better of a direction to reward like good player, gameplay, as opposed to like, let me just stat check the players over and over again, and if you don't have 90 defensive players, I'm just gonna one-shot you with an unavoidable attack. But TLDR, D4 bad, PoE line. It would be so easy to fix D4. If I had control of D4 for like a week, I could fix the itemization. I would just erase all the stupid legendary aspects that specifically state what skill you need to use for this interaction, and turn it to a more generic modifier that affects like a blanket of skills. So instead of fireball does this thing, I would change it to fire skills does this thing. Or instead of arrows do like fire, like I don't know, rain of arrows does this thing, I would say all bow projectiles do this thing. So then you have, instead of like shoehorning people into playing a specific skill with each aspect, you're now able to use one aspect for 7 or 8 different builds, and that already opens up the space of different builds, and you wouldn't have to do much other than change the wording on some of these aspects.
Yeah, that'll be good.
At most tourneys, the fighters get money after they win the whole thing. Here, we do things a little differently.
Yeah, I started at 12 and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'm like, I have to go be at like 10 o'clock or whatever.
I didn't realize it didn't start at 12 until I got all the way around to restart. When Jimmy linked this, I was like, I've definitely done at least up until like 20 div on her. Like, I played New Start, it's sick. I farmed like 20 to 50 divs, and I'm like, alright, I can play like some weird build that requires a little more gear. And I'm like, oh, it's still not good enough. Like, I spent 50 divs and it doesn't even perform as good as my original build that cost me like 2 divs. And then I go back to that farming more. And now
I just hate how every time I'm about to start maps, I have to like spend like 20 minutes to like, okay, are all my res is 75? Like, you know, there's all that. It's like, I just find that annoying how like everyone has to have like 75 res at everything. Like, it doesn't matter where you're playing.
Yeah,
like, it's just kind of annoying.
Brutal. I kind of like it, but I kind of don't a little bit. But like, yeah, I understand how that can be pretty annoying, and because like the game doesn't really tell you that it's like mandatory almost. You're just gonna get shit on white maps if you don't have capped res.
The thing is, I know it's mandatory. I just find it a nuisance to have to do that every single time. And like every time you get a new item, it's like, okay, does my res get fucked here or not? And it's too crucial. Like, I get it, you know, you need some important defensive layers, but like it just feels like it's like if it's not capped, you're literally fucked permanently. Like, it has to be permanently capped. It can never be uncapped ever. Like literally ever.
Unless you're playing some weird like.
Unless it's like some crazy shit.
Like the builds that have like negative res or something like that.
Yeah. But for like most builds.
Yeah, most builds.
It's just like, I don't like how that's like just mandatory.
I don't know. PoE 2 is gonna save GGG, man. That's my copium. PoE 2 is gonna save them.
I think so.
It's gonna fix the game.
I think it will actually. I think it'll be like a better D4.
Yeah.
I don't think
just
so.
even. Wait, PoE 2 is gonna be a better D4?
PoE 2 is going to be like PoE 1, but it's better to play. That company builds games with a very, very specific audience in mind, and they don't give a fuck if they upset the general audience or the average player. Well, they care about their average player, but they don't care about the average.
Well, that's the beauty of
at
indie
all.
companies, right?
And they haven't spent a lot of time or effort because they know they'll never appeal to that person anyway. So if they didn't do that for PoE 2, I would be majorly disappointed.
But Chris is a part of this. I think PoE 2, so there isn't the Chris Wilson vision. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean that's the vision of the company as well.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if like it's gonna. It's definitely not gonna be like anywhere near as casual as the other two games. But I definitely think they're bringing it down a notch for sure at a baseline.
What?
Like, cause it's still gonna have the skill tree and like I would assume ascendancy. Yeah, like I think we've seen ascendancy. Ram more ascendancies actually. More classes, the same passive skill tree. So like all that complexity is not going anywhere. But I think the pace of combat and stuff will go down like a tad bit. I think it's fine. I think the whole weapon swap tech for PoE 2 is insane too.
Yeah, that does look pretty insane actually.
Like the whole like you get to use 2 weapons if you wanted to, and if you weapon swapped, you can actually change on the fly